Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Ducharme, and welcome to the Authentically You podcast. I'm so excited to be back again. And as you guys know, we are always interviewing people around the world about the authentic things that they're doing. And this is so much fun because I learn so much each time I do this. And I know all of you do as well. So today I'm excited to have with us Lisa Kirkwood. Lisa is a modern Renaissance woman with an international background and multiple areas of expertise. She brings meaningful and amazing stories from all over the world, and she can turn any speech into a mesmerizing experience. Great storytelling educates, advises, and enlightens the spirit. And for over 30 years, Lisa has been a champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion way before the terms were coined together as such. With more than a decade of professional experience in corporate America for major banks like Wells Fargo, Connecticut, and Comerica, I think it's Comerica, Lisa has been reorganized for her personal contributions and diversity. And she is also a Heroes Extraordinaire Award winner. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. And it's always exciting. As you know, I do a lot of things with women empowerment. So it's always exciting to talk with people who are focusing on diversity and equity inclusion and how we can best address that in a variety of terms. And I love as well that you are someone who does storytelling, which I think is also really unique. And so I'd love to hear about how you connected these things, how you put the storytelling with the diversity and equity. And obviously, you do a lot more than that we'll talk about leadership development, empowerment. But love to hear how you stepped into this.
Yes, ma'am. As far as the storytelling, that goes as far as I can remember. As long as when I started speaking, really, I would listen to stories. Grandma would read to us, and that's stuck with me for the rest of my life. To this day, I love to read, and my favorite genre is fantasy. And I like when people are captivated by a story because they can find their own life depicted in somebody else's journey. So that was actually a natural transition. Now, how I connected storytelling with diversity, I connect pretty much storytelling. I connected pretty much with anything, not just diversity. I also speak on empowerment, environment, and spirituality. And there's always a revealing story that can bring people together and make them connect on a personal, emotional level. So it was a natural transition. And like I said, it goes as far back as I can remember since I started having my first childhood memories, like 4 years old.
Well, something I think that's interesting is that every culture tells stories. And of course, I remember lots of loving stories from my grandparents and parents about their experiences and the history. And so I think it's very relatable. We always talk about whenever I do talks as well, I find stories that relate to people because it just brings them in. So I think it's really fantastic. And I agree with you. It just really fits with anything and everything you're doing and really brings the audience in. And so, you have a lot of different things on your website that you do, but one of the things is diversity and equity and inclusion. And can you tell us a little bit about what you do with that?
Yes, I started my professional journey in corporate America more than a decade ago. And I was fortunate to be in a bank that really valued diversity, equity, and inclusion across the board. Our team that I was working with, it was by itself a really global village. I could
Mhm.
name off the top of my head at least 7 different nationalities that were in our department alone. So I realized that it's a thing that you can actually leverage. Until I came to the United States, being diverse was something exotic and something that Romanians gladly embraced after the fall of communism. But I didn't think much of it until I actually started being recognized for it, because I brought a lot to the table in terms of international background and how you can educate people on cultural diversity and different traditions, different things that you find dear and meaningful in your home country, and then you bring them over and you have this big choice to blend in or to stand out. And I chose to stand out, and not only that, but actually share my culture, my history, my language with my coworkers, and they were thrilled. And I was not the only one doing that. The management was encouraging that actively. Everybody who has an international story, do tell it. Romania, South Korea, Cambodia, Ukraine. We had somebody from Ukraine too in our team. So that was, they would periodically organize some kind of get together among the teams, and us foreigners would share elements of our culture. So that went on for like a decade, and I took it and ran with it. Not only that, but I got recognized for the contribution that I brought to diversity. Twice I was an awardee of diversity excellence. So it's one of my proud moments.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's a book called The Culture Map, that was written by Erin Myers, and her job is basically going into organizations that have diverse teams, like what you're talking about, and fixing the problems, because every culture is a different way they communicate and a different way they behave, and a lot of times that can be a real struggle in order for them to create tasks or work on projects together in a really successful way. And I learned a lot from the book about everything from reading the air, which they talk about doing that a lot with different cultures like Japanese and Chinese, to understanding Germans and the way they respond. And I think it's really important to do what you're doing because America is a melting pot. And so if we can better understand each other's cultures, we're less to get offended, we're less to get frustrated, and we're more to understand that. And of course, I think it's great for us to understand all cultures. My husband and I purposely take our kids out of the US because we want them to see other countries and other cultures and other people and food and really appreciate the diversity of our world that we're in. So I think that's fantastic and probably needs to be done a lot more within our organizations, especially with those, as you mentioned, that have quite a diverse global dynamic to them. So I think that's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why that actually led me to develop this program, Higher Dimensions of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, because even with the management team as embracing of diversity as I had, and going to other banks other than the one that I worked with for 10 years, I realized that even the diversity training that they offer only runs skin deep. It's not doesn't address much the secondary dimensions of diversity, which is, like you mentioned, culture, for example. It's very, very important. It tends to stop at race, which is always trendy. Race, gender, and maybe disability. These three things they do cover. It's kind of like mandatory. And everything else, talk about culture, language, religion, which is a big one. And
Yeah.
anything else that you can think of is not covered.
Mhm.
And in some aspects, understandably so, because not everyone is comfortable with talking about religion or about
Yeah.
foreign cultures unless they do have that international background to bring it to the table and actually bridge the gap between these cultures.
Yeah, really excellent point. I've done those diversity trainings a lot. And I do agree, they're very surface. And I get that probably we could spend hours and hours and hours doing trainings on every culture. But I think it would be good to go a little deeper and understand how do we approach someone and ask them about their culture, right? Because sometimes people just don't want to ask or they're embarrassed or, oh, will they get offended if I ask them about that? But really opening up the lines of communication to really make it an educational experience, I think would be great. Now, as I was going through your website, I noticed a few other topics. One is environment and spirituality. And I noticed on here it talks about voices of the earth. And I thought that was really interesting. I'd love for you to expand on what that is about.
Yes, the fact that we are all together as a human species, more or less unified. And not only that, but we also live in the middle of nature with plants and animals. And everybody has a voice, whether they speak, they have spoken language, or they don't. I was watching a number of documentaries with David Attenborough, Sir David Attenborough, the famous BBC narrator. And he presented one documentary series called The Green Planet. And basically, in fast forward motion, you could see how plants communicate and grow. They are not static. You look at them, but they communicate. They emit some chemicals. They move. So if plants communicate like that, then animals communicate with their own voice, short of words, even though some animals also cross that barrier. Think for example, parrots and even some dogs, you could swear that they say, I love you. You know, some owners teach them to do just that. So what this is about, Voices of the Earth, is about the global communion between us humans, the animal kingdom, and the plants, and we can all live together in harmony.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I always think it's such an interesting perspective to learn of these different things. I'm obviously heavy into business, and so I don't get to spend a lot of time focusing on the environment or animals. But I have got a chance to travel to some really unique places, which gives me a bit of a perspective on that. So I think that's really interesting. You also talk about in there extensive soul healing. And I'm really curious about this because very often we talk about healing. And as you know, I work with a lot of veterans that have transitioned out of the military. And there's definitely a healing aspect as they transition to the civilian life and kind of working through those different things. So I'd love to hear about your extensive soul healing.
I think the best way to answer that is to bring to the table your own story. How do you heal your own soul? Beside and beyond the theory, how you can forgive and let go and actually thrive, there's a process. This is a lifelong learning process. And soul wounds, unlike physical wounds, these take a lot longer to heal. I'm going to give you an example. I was on a different show about a year and a half ago, and one of the ladies who was moderating it, she shared her own life story. And myself, who sometimes, I mean, we all have these moments, we try to throw a pity party and victimize ourselves. And then you hear somebody else's story and you realize, oh my gosh, so and so is a walking miracle, no less. And this lady, she shared the kind of abuse that she lived in for many, many years, and by her dad, not only herself, but I think her younger brother and her mother, of course. And this lady, she was able to turn it around and change it, not only make peace with the past and even with her abusive dad and heal her own soul, but she became a martial artist. That's one way to defend herself and
Mhm.
help others defend themselves, women particularly. And then she dedicated her life to offering coaching and all this support to women who have gone through similar or terrible ordeals, to help them overcome the um, the odds and the stress and the hurt of their life. So she actually healed herself by healing others.
Mm.
And that was a really really neat um, learning experience for me, because I was like, people have wronged me, although I've wronged people myself, we all have. But thinking on how other really much deeper victims dealt with their own hurt and pain, and they turned it around and they were able to heal it and help others heal. I'm like, that's a really big story to be told, and a life lesson to be learned about healing. And again, the main thing is support and communion, no judgment. Come as you are, and you're going to come out at the other side of the tunnel an enlightened person, a healed person, and you can in turn heal others.
Yeah, that's fantastic and such a great lesson to learn that if we can give back to others, it will help us with our healing. And I've definitely seen that a lot with a lot of different groups where they've affected that and then they've picked that career to help others. So I think that's amazing. Well, as we come to the end of our podcast, I wanted to ask you about any other endeavors or things going on that our listeners can learn about. If you have any books or something new going out that they can stay up to date on with you.
Yes, the program that I've been developing, Higher Dimensions of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, will also be put into a book, or at
Mm.
least the main highlights. I do have a book already on Amazon, but that is in the science fiction genre. So this will be my second book, basically, and I look forward to its publication date. But I have other things that I'm working on, structuring speeches, themes, how I can better connect with audiences. There's a lot on my plate because I'm a content creator. I always write things, and I always love to share stories. So whenever I get a group of people and I get in front of a group of people with a story to share, I'm happy to tell it.
That's fantastic. And if someone wants to reach out to you to book you to speak or get involved in some of your other initiatives, what's the best way that they should reach out to you?
Sure, they can visit my website. I have the information, contact information there, www.thetruestoriesmerchant.com, or you can call my business number 323-364-3757, or email me at lisa.kirkwood7@gmail. And I even have a LinkedIn profile, Lisa E. Kirkwood, the True Stories Merchant. So either one of those work.
Perfect. And for those of you who might be riding a bike right now, working out, you didn't get to write that down, don't worry. We'll have all of that info in the post as well for you if you're listening in a place where you couldn't get a hold of that. So it has been such a pleasure talking with you, Lisa, on our show today. You're definitely doing some really amazing and authentic things in our world. And I'm excited for that. And hopefully I'll get a chance to catch you telling one of your master stories soon. And of course, if you have any of those events where anyone can come, please let us know so we can promote it out and let everyone know to catch you and they can learn from you. So it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show. And as I always say, live, love, laugh, and always be your authentic self.